Joe Hopkins here, and I want to talk about something today. It's about the guitar solo, or soloing in general. I keep hearing this theory. I got my notes here just so you know what I'm looking at. I take notes sometimes, right? I don't hide them so you can't see them. You know I'm reading notes because my eyesight ain't that good and I have to actually hold it where I can see it, so I can't hide it. I can't have a teleprompter, right? But anyway, soloing. I hear a lot of people say that the solo is dead, it left music, it's gone, and I got to thinking, I don't think it's gone. I don't think it went anywhere. I don't think much has really changed. Not really. And I'll tell you why. All throughout history, even going back to classical music, having solo pieces, improvisational pieces, and famous soloists is nothing new. That's always been. But it's rarely on the top hits of the time. But it tends to be on a lot of the songs we remember. And bear with me here, right? Everybody talks about the great guitar solos of like the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. People remember the rock and roll of the 50s and the jazz of the 40s and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of those songs weren't big hits. I'm just saying, we're seeing the top 40 right now and saying, man, there isn't a lot of guitar soloing. There isn't a lot of solos on these. But that tends to be the case. Now, that's not to say the musicianship on any of these songs is bad. Most of these songs are really good songs with excellent musicianship. Some of them have like short solos. A lot of times, a guitar, a saxophone, or trumpet playing the melody part, just a short bit. Not really a big solo piece. But most of the top 40 songs throughout history, or the big hits, have been songs. Melody pieces where people tend to be more focused on the melody. It's no different now than it ever was. But the songs that we remember, for instance, right, 1971, this is where I got my notes because I got to remember dates and stuff, right? In 71, Led Zeppelin put out Stairway to Heaven. That is one of the biggest radio songs of all time. It's one of the most played songs, I think it still is the most played song on the radio of all time. But they never released it as a single. It wasn't a top 40 hit. The number one song from 1971 was Joy to the World by Three Dog Night. It's just one example, right? There are a lot of them. In 1987, Appetite for Destruction came out, right? I heard that. It blew me away. But the number one song of that year was Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles. And that's pretty representative of top 40 at the time. Now, Guns N' Roses did make the top 40, so did Led Zeppelin. But not as much as a lot of bands that didn't have solos. Like the top 40 tends to be dominated by songs, more song-based. And I mean, those are songs, but the ones where the song is the focus more than the musicianship. Good musicianship in the songs, good playing, but that's not the focus as much, right? Hey, 1981, the Stones did Start Me Up. The Rolling Stones are known for their musicianship. Keith Richards did, Ron Wood did a lot of soloing on Rolling Stones stuff. They were good at it. Start Me Up has like a short rhythmic break. It's not exactly a solo, but that was their big hit, right? I mean, even bands known for soloing, a lot of times their big hit, really look at it, the song that went to the top isn't one of their big, guitar solo songs. Same thing with Pink Floyd, one of their biggest hits, Another Brick Part 2, right? That's when Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 came out. That was the big one off of Another Brick in the Wall, that album. That album is full of soloing, some of the greatest guitar solos of all time, but the song that made the top had like a real shortened solo. It wasn't much. They even radio edit a lot of songs that have longer solos when they put it on the radio. The hit version, the version that everybody heard, isn't the version with the extended solo in it. A lot of people did that. I think it's a lot of the label did that. Even Queen, right? Some of the greatest guitar work of all time, and the radio hits tended to be things like Another One Bites the Dust, where there's a solo, but it's not It's not a real long solo. It's not a real guitar-heavy song. You know what I mean? The stuff with the shorter solos tends to really make it. Now, like Bohemian Rhapsody, that's an amazing solo. That hit. It did. And that's one of the oddballs. There are exceptions to this rule, but in general, it's not the big solo songs. So when we say, the guitar solo is dead, no, there are lots of bands doing guitar solos. They're not in the top 40. And that's not an odd thing. Let's go back to 1967. We think of Sgt. Pepper, right? We think Jimi Hendrix. We think, that wild psychedelic rock. The number one song of that year was To Sir With Love by Lulu, and that's fairly representative of the top 40 at the time. Hendrix wasn't a big hit. The Beatles were, and that was in the top 40. But a lot of the Beatles songs that made it to the top 40, most of them didn't have really, guitar solos. Although George Harrison was an excellent guitarist. John Lennon was no slouch either. That stuff didn't make it to the top, 1969, we think Woodstock. What was the number one song of 1969? Sugar Sugar by the Archies. They were a cartoon band. The Archies. Look it up. That's nuts. 1969. We forget that the 60s was dominated by bubblegum rock. I mean, I wrote it down here. The 60s, the bubblegum rock. What was it? Well, the 50s, right? And it carried all through the 60s. The vocal groups like the Chordettes, the Platters, you might have a short melody solo, like a saxophone bit or something that follows the melody of the song, but that would be about it, right? When you think of the 50s, you think of, Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and, Richie Valens. And yeah, that stuff was there, and a lot of those were top 40 hits too, but those were the exception rather than the rule. That tends to be the case, where the song where it's like, man, that's a good guitar song, that's a great solo. Those are the exceptions. Take a look at throughout most of history. You do have some exceptions that went all the way to the top, like Michael Jackson's Beat It. But I'll be honest with you, songs like that, a lot of times I feel like the guitar solo is shoehorned in to be there. And Beat It is a good example of that. Now, nothing against Michael Jackson. He wanted to feature one of the greatest guitarists of that particular time, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, Eddie Van Halen. And wanting to feature him, that's great, but it does feel like it was shoehorned in. That feels like it doesn't feel like Eddie stretched himself out much. That is your standard Eddie Van Halen solo, like the standard solo. That is, like, it doesn't feel like he really put a lot of thought in it. It's a great solo. Nothing wrong with it. It's amazing. But I really kind of wish that Steve Lukather, who did all the other guitars on that song, had done the solo. I think it might have been more interesting. I think he would have put more thought into it. Whereas Eddie was just doing this on the side. You know what I mean? Great solo, nothing against it, like I said. And then you do have artists like Prince, who hit the top 40 regularly and put amazing guitar work and amazing guitar solos in his songs. The guy was absolutely phenomenal guitarist. But a lot of times his big hits were the ones that really didn't feature a lot of that in there, or they would cut it, edit it, reduce how much of it there was. Now, like I said, there were periods of time where there were serious exceptions, right? People think of the 80s, 70s, and 80s as like the guitar solo time period, but it seems to me that the period of time with the most guitar stuff was early 90s, right? Late 80s, early 90s, like 88 through 92, when Guns N' Roses were dominating the top 40, and you had bands like Alice in Chains having multi-platinum selling records and, stuff like that. And, Aerosmith. Oh, God. Aerosmith, Metallica, the Black Album, right? They were huge. Even up into the Nirvana era, when people talk about Kurt Cobain killed the guitar solo, Nirvana had guitar solos. Kurt Cobain would play short, simple bits, but they were solos. But right at the same time, Aerosmith's Get a Grip album was like at the top of the charts, and so was Metallica's Black Album, and Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood was still up there, and Guns N' Roses were dominating the charts with the Use Your Illusion albums, and the guitar solo was huge during that period of time, to the point where even in soul and R&B songs, they were shoehorning in a guitar solo. And that's what I mean about shoehorning. When Mariah Carey has a guitar, like a rock guitar solo on her thing, they're kind of shoehorning it in because it's a popular thing at the moment. But that didn't last, man. By the mid-90s, the guitar solo is back to being, muted or not there. And Top 40 hasn't really had a lot of soloing. I mean, really, look back to the jazz eras, right? I love big band swing. A lot of it doesn't have a lot of the wild soloing on the record. If you went to see them live, it was a different story. But on the record, it didn't have a lot of that. It was all about the song. And then we went from the swing era to the sing era. You got artists like Frank Sinatra and Perry Como and all song-based stuff. And they pushed artists like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie off the charts. So you go from having rather shortened or annotated solos on songs that would be much more improvisational live to songs that just don't have that at all. It really is based on the song. And that's kind of always been the case. Now, where like I said, there have been exceptions. I love a lot of the guitar soloing in country music there in like the 80s and early 90s. A lot of that stuff, man, a lot of those songs had some really ripping, chicken-picking guitar solos. And country music, again, back in like the 40s and 50s when bluegrass was getting really big, that was all about taking turns soloing. Bluegrass is like that, and that was top 40 back then. You gotta remember that, man. At least on the country charts, those were big, right? And some of that stuff even bled over into the regular popular music charts. But yeah, there are always genres of music that have tons of guitar soloing and tons of soloing in general, right? But as far as the charts go, so when you say the guitar solo, what happened to it? Nothing happened to it. This is the historical norm where the top 40 pop charts are lacking in like that real big musical stuff, right? The stuff we remember as being great. But it tends to be filled with stuff that they're good songs, but a lot of them we don't remember over time. Like I said, some of the ones I mentioned here, like Sugar Sugar by the Archies. Some of you older guys might remember it, but it's not the first thing that comes to your mind, is it? And these are songs like the top 40 hits. You probably not the first thing you think of. When you think of any era of music, you're thinking of the great music of that time period, the really amazing musicians, the really great songs, but a lot of those weren't top 40 hits. Like I said, every guitarist remembers Hendrix. Everybody that thinks of the late 60s is going to think of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Doors. The Doors had big hits. Most of their hits didn't have like a lot of wild musicianship in them. They were pretty straightforward songs. And Hendrix and Joplin, they weren't big hits. They had like a song or two on the top 40. They weren't tearing it up. That's who we think of, because that's what we identify with that time period. But bubblegum rock was still the rule at the time. And even into the 70s, when the guitar solo became more and more prevalent in popular music, it still wasn't the norm in the big hits of any particular time, with, like I said, a few exceptions. I do remember the late 80s and early 90s when it wasn't just, unlike the 80s, where you had great rock songs with great guitar solos, but they weren't top 40. Late 80s, early 90s, you really did have a lot of amazing guitar work in the top 40. I won't say amazing guitar work. A lot of those other songs, they have amazing guitar work, but it's all song-based. It's all rhythm stuff. It's parts. But that amazing ripping solo got really popular for a little while. Late 80s, early 90s, it was really there. And was very normal in the top 40 for a hot minute. And then you look at it where rock stays, but the guitar solo part kind of disappears as the 90s go on. And I know you guys are going to talk about a lot of bands. You're going to mention in the comments, what about this band? What about that band? I'm talking about what's generally representative of the top 40 of any given time period. You have, I mean, let's put it this way. You have a lot more Madonna than Van Halen, right? It just is what it is. That's what it is. So when you look at the charts now and you're like, there aren't guitar solos, there weren't then. You could find it. There were popular songs that were there. But I mean, keep in mind, man, as much as Ozzy was just absolutely amazing, especially through the 80s, that was like the Ozzy decade, so we think. He had like one song in the top 40, and one number one, I would say. Was it number one or just in the top 40? I was just in the top 40. Trying to think of it. I can see the video in my head. It's the one where he looks like a trucker in drag. It's honest to God. Terrible video. Great song. One of the shortest solos of any of his songs. And that was the hit. But we think of Crazy Train because it was an amazing song, but it wasn't top 40. Look it up. This stuff, maybe top 40 on the rock charts, but I'm talking on the popular music, like the top 40, not by genre. That kind of stuff isn't representative. You look at top 40 rock charts, yeah, there's going to be solos all over the place. It's rock. You look at top 40 jazz charts, you're going to have a lot of soloing because it's jazz. But it's not, I mean, I'm just saying, Miles Davis didn't have too many top 40 hits. As amazing as he was, amazing soloist, this isn't stuff that is consumed by the masses. So it's not abnormal. And that's my thoughts on it, man. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And like I said, there's nothing wrong if you disagree, but I'm right. And I'll see y'all in the next video. I love y'all. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye.